This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 516, recorded on December 9th, 2021. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way in your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a snowy, well, not yet, Mike. Do you think they've been talking all week?
We're
snow
supposed
tomorrow?
to, right?
Are we
Tomorrow
gonna get
night into Friday, I think we might. We'll see.
Substantial is what I heard, or at least, we have these terms. If you don't live in snow environments, we have this nuisance. They call it a nuisance snow, just enough, not enough to plow, but enough to cause problems.
People to still drive like doofuses.
Have you heard any amounts so far as what
yet.
you're thinking? I heard 1 to 3.
I just got the alert on my phone. That's all I got.
Okay.
Okay. Apparently snow's coming later.
Well, I bought a new I bought a new heater for the shed. We'll talk about it in the post show. I've been, you buy those things and you're like, come on, cold weather. 65 today.
It was gorgeous today. I really liked it. Yeah, it was nice.
I know. The last 2 days have been beautiful. I need to get outside some more. I just haven't got out there. Anyways, hopefully the weather is great where you're at and you're getting outside. And of course, we'll post this show with some world-class show notes out at the AverageGuy.tv. Hey, something I'm trying new that I want you guys to join me on, and that is noon Central. So noon Central on Saturdays. I'm going to premiere this show. So the one we're recording right now, I'm going to premiere it on YouTube at noon, and I'll be there. So my production, the podcast production now is pretty standard every week. Friday nights I do the video, the audio, the video. I upload it. It's all ready to go. I do Ask the Podcast Coach with Dave Jackson on Saturday mornings, 9:30. We're done at 11. I start on the show notes. By noon, I have everything uploaded, titled, ready to go. And what I thought is, why don't I just set this as a premiere and it will go live right at noon, and then we could share it again together. Now, for those of you listening live, maybe that's not you, but for future weeks, I'll be doing this for, I don't know, maybe all of 2022. And I'd love you, if you can't join me live on Thursday, join me live on Saturday. Just come out and watch the premiere, and I'll be there in the chat room with you.
Yeah, and for this Saturday, Jim, especially since people listening to the show won't know about it, right, until it premieres.
Mm-hmm.
Only our live people will. Maybe for the first 2 weeks. I know people don't like at everyone's in Discord because everyone in the channel gets an alert. But I think for certain times like this, at everyone, Jim, in the general, and just say, hey, by the way, we're going to start doing this premiere thing. It's at noon, and maybe do it right at noon on Saturday or 10 minutes before. That way they can all come out. I love YouTube premieres. I actually watch those a lot. And it's funny because I would watch that video anyway. But I just like how there's a chat involved, and so everyone's chatting live while they're watching it. So it's almost like you get to experience it twice. There's the live, and then there's the premiere. So I like the idea, Jim.
Yeah, well, and I'll be there. I'm spending the second half from noon to 1. I spend socializing the podcast in various places, whatever. I'm listening to the Cigar Authority the whole time. But I'll be in chat. So if you want to jump in there and say hi or whatever and join us on the premiere, we'll be doing that for the foreseeable future. I'll be talking about it in future podcasts as well. And if you want to join me doing that noon Central on YouTube premiere, it might be a great idea just to subscribe to the Average Guy. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. So it's just Jim Collison on YouTube. If you want to go out there, we have a live one, the AverageGuy.tv. That's what we're on right now. I pull it down from there, edit it, push it up to my own YouTube channel. Subscribe to that. 1,400 of you or so subscribe to that channel. You'll get a notification about a premiere being available for you. So a good opportunity to go and subscribe. Did you want to say something?
No.
I heard you breathe.
Well, I was going to say, and this one might be a good one to watch the video version of, but then I remembered, Jim, that I'm having screen sharing issues. So I was going to screen share a lot more tonight than I think I will.
You know what? While I'm talking, drop some pictures in Discord, and I'll just share them from straight from Discord. Here, can you do that? Like,
put them in.
Send them to me in Discord, and I'll just bring them up as we're going along.
Yeah,
do that while I'm talking. Big thanks to Jay Madison, who joined us last week, and Jay always just does a bang up job. And so, Jay, thanks for coming on, and just so interesting. He's just so neat about everything. He's the opposite of me. I destroy everything. When I'm putting PCs together, there's blood over everything because I've cut my fingers on all the sharp parts and stuff, right? Jay's got his act together. So big thanks to Jay for coming on last week, being a part of it. Big thanks to our Patreon supporters. It's the beginning of the month, and always reminded for you guys, thank you for supporting the show each and every month. Many of you do, and many of you are listening do that as well. If you want to, I have a $5 plan. It doesn't get you a ton. It's just a big thank you to me, and I appreciate that. Thanks for doing that. You do get access to it's an easy way of getting the video, the live video, the whole thing. You could get that on YouTube, but I could send it to you in an email on Patreon if you want to do it that way, or you can get the audio version of it on Patreon that you can download. So if you want to do that as well, and plus if you're a Patreon supporter and you want to just chat, just give me a shout. I'll jump on and chat with you. It'd be fun to do that. We featured a bunch of you this fall, thanks to our Patreon supporters for doing that as well. Post show, I'll talk a little bit. I got a cool new tool. I've told you guys I've been on a little bit of a tool binge, and I got another new one because I can't stop. Can't stop, won't stop is what my daughter would say. Can't stop, won't stop. And so we'll talk about that here in the post show. Mike, you've had nothing but trouble with your Unraid box.
That is the understatement of the year, Jim. Yeah, there has been issue after issue after issue with Unraid, and I want to be very clear at the beginning of this. It has nothing to do with Unraid the software. Unraid itself has always been rock solid for me. I've never had any issues. But my particular box over the last few weeks has just been throwing up so many random errors. And Jim, when we talked about this, actually, I was trying to apologize to Bob and team for the when we were on the podcast with them, because I was so distracted, because right before that podcast, when we were on with them on Think Computers, we had another big crash with stuff and things stopped working. And, Jim, this kind of goes back to the conversation you and I have been having over the past few months of getting rid of some of my self-hosted stuff. And I was really glad, Jim, over the past few weeks that I had decided to move away from Nextcloud, right? Because like OneDrive, this didn't affect my files. This didn't affect Hannah's files. Password Manager, it didn't affect because I had moved back to LastPass. So this was one of those instances, Jim, where things out of your control going wrong. There's no way I could have foreseen this. Maybe I could have foreseen it because the hardware's 10 years old. That's probably why I should have foreseen issues. But all of a sudden, when my Unraid server is acting up, Plex is just down. Like to be honest, like realistically, yes, NAS storage, but I only use that when I'm editing videos. Plex was down, and the other big one for me, I guess, was home automation, because Home Assistant for me, that VM runs on Unraid. So both of those start to go down. But so, because you now, for your self-hosting stuff, you use pretty much the cloud for everything, right? Like channels for you, if your main media server went down, what all would you lose? Like in sense of like, okay, I can get this back up for the time being, though X, Y, and Z is down.
Yeah, I don't have any stored media at all anymore. All pictures, all movies. We don't, if we really want to watch the movie and we own it, we just pull the DVD out and it goes in the Xbox. Yeah. Right. No longer. By the way, I did bring my Drobo back to life. Maybe I'll talk about that here at the end of the show. We should. Remind me. I got it back. There's a little story behind that too. But no, I've gone, we're either recording it from HD home runs into channels, or now I'm just watching channels. I mean, I just don't, if we want a movie, we go to the service that has it. Right. Or go to the theater, because you can now. So yeah, no, it's kind of old school that way, maybe.
Well, and that's where I was glad I had kind of made the switch. So, long story short, the server was having a bunch of issues. And guys, this was one of those things where for a week straight, and my Plex server, certain friends and family have access to it. And I'm getting texts a lot saying this won't work and why, it's down, and times where I didn't know it was down. And so I started looking into it, and my poor wife didn't see me every single night for a week, because I would reformat a drive thinking that was it. It would work for a while, and then it wouldn't. Right. And so, what I thought it was and what worked for a little bit was replacing the cache drive in Unraid. So I had an SSD. It's actually still right here. Was going to throw it away until we find out what the real culprit was. It was not this SSD. So I had this SSD in here as a 500 gig drive. I ordered a new Crucial 1 terabyte. I throw it in there and it works, right? But this was the problem. It kept working for a little bit and then it wouldn't. And I would go look in the logs and there was just like faults everywhere. And the weird part was, Jim, the reason I should have known this my hardware was going bad was because I could do a clean shutdown when everything was working great, fire it back up, and like Plex would be like, I don't have my config file. And things would be like, I'm like, well, it was just there. I would go look at the config file and sure enough, it was empty. And luckily I had to pull from all my backups. And so I kept pulling from backups. So things that when you clean shut down, you have no issues, you fire back up, things shouldn't just like be missing. I would launch a Docker and all of a sudden all my shares would just disappear. I had no more shares. And then the server would lock up. So it was bad hardware, right? We've talked about this. I've been limping along a motherboard that was made in 2011, along with an i7-3770. Nothing wrong with that CPU. I actually think I could probably sell. I don't think the CPU is bad. I could probably sell the CPU. I think it was probably the motherboard. But in any event, I use this as an opportunity to just completely gut and rebuild. And, so there's a few concerns here. Number one was, I have never done a move of Unraid from one system to another because all my drives were going to stay the same. All my hard drives were fantastic. Even my cache drives, I'm like, I'm going to keep everything the exact same. I'm swapping motherboard, CPU, and RAM. It's really what I'm doing. So I did take the opportunity. I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to upgrade, I want to go big, and not super big, right? We're not talking like Threadripper here, but I did upgrade. Went AMD this time, and I did go with the latest gen Ryzen. So I went with a Ryzen 5 5600X, which I love this CPU. It's absolutely fantastic. Motherboard, you guys can debate me on if I made the right choice or not. I found a good deal on a B550. Now I should probably have gone X570 on the motherboard chipset for AMD. And, if you really want to get nerdy about this between X570 and B550, X570 really just is kind of like there's no limitations with it. You get kind of full lanes to the CPU, to the bridge, which means, everything just works well, right? But for my Unraid server, I actually went with an Asus Strix. It's actually a gaming motherboard, but it has all the features that I really want. It's got a lot of PCI slots, good RAM support, 4 DIMMs, can support Ryzen 5 and going forward. So I went with the the ROG Strix B550 Gaming F motherboard for those of you guys who want to know the details of that. And then the Ryzen processor. And this time I did upgrade to 32 gigs of RAM, which that is like, I think nowadays for a server.
Yeah.
Necessary.
It's the minimum. I think it's the minimum. If you're going to run any virtual machines on there, sure. Right. Or Dockers, like you need it. And I have one that's got 32 and I'm wishing it had 64 at this point.
And that was actually, I future-proofed myself there too. I got 2 16 gig DIMMs. So that way I could still get 2 more.
Yeah. And
upgrade to 64 in the future.
So 4 and it supports up to 64 on the board?
Supports up to 128.
Okay, good.
On the board. So I just did 2 DIMMs, so I only have 2 of the 4 filled. So if I ever want to, I can just buy 2 more 16 gig sticks and throw it in there.
I just buy them, Mike. I honestly, I would give it 2 months and I just buy them.
I probably will.
Yeah, you should. That's not. Listen, I know you.
Yeah,
you're gonna want it, and
I know
it's not something you need today, and it's not like the price is gonna change that radically. You just spend a bunch of cash.
Yeah,
like let that.
This is an expensive upgrade. We'll say that.
Let that settle in, but then in 2 or 3 months, buy the other. You will be so glad you did because RAM's not getting any cheaper. And even older RAM is not getting any cheaper. It's just that's the one thing I wish is I'm running all this crypto stuff. Is I just wish I always had more RAM, and I always cheaped out on the RAM, and that's always the dumbest thing to cheap out on.
It really is.
It really
is. Yeah. And after doing this all, I had really second guessed myself on did I make the right choice. Actually, I'll tell the story in a second about ordering all this stuff. But when I ordered it, I'm like, Mike, this is an Unraid server. Do you really need the latest gen? So now my Unraid server, with the exception of the graphics card, is more powerful than the gaming PC I'm talking to you on. My gaming PC, not by much. My gaming PC is a Ryzen 5 3600. This is the new Ryzen 5 5600, latest 5th gen. The motherboards are pretty comparable. Actually, I run an X570 in this build, and that's a B550. I can keep getting these things right. So I was kind of concerned, but then you know what? As soon as I got it fired up and I just started loading everything on, with that i7 3770, I was pegged at like 100% right before I shut it all down with everything I was trying to run. I was trying to run too much. This thing runs at like 18% with the exact same stuff plus more. So I was like, okay, that was definitely the right decision because now it's future proofing as we go forward.
Well, and you can always, let's just say in the future, that can be switched to a gaming rig if you
it completely could,
if you want to, say you may go a little more traditional on the server side. You start running some stuff. You're like, I'm going to put a Blade server in here. Like then now you have a gaming box that can step down and do some of the game. I don't think you ever lose when you buy good hardware. You just never. You just it can always be repurposed, reused, put in another place. So I wouldn't second guess it. I think in the way you use Unraid, you need some overhead. You had that thing pegged.
Yeah, I know. Well, because this was the thing. And this might have led to a premature failure on the hardware. What I had just done was not too long ago, I can't remember if I talked about this on the show. I went from, I had been running Blue Iris or a Sighthound. People know Blue Iris as the NVR, right, for your security cameras around your house. I actually use Sighthound, but it's my NVR. I had been running that on a dedicated, just old Dell Optiplex. But I was like, man, why am I running 2 boxes? Because that's definitely more power more like actual electricity power that I need to be running. So I had consolidated that onto a Windows VM. And that was really my issue, right? That i7 3770 wasn't meant to run everything I was running on it plus another Windows VM. But now it runs like an absolute dream. And a big part of me doing that was actually finally enabling VLANs on Unraid. So my Unraid box can now access my main LAN that everything's on, but then my one VLAN for security is accessed by that one VM. So my Windows 10 VM that runs Sighthound is actually on my security camera network, which is nice. So I finally got the VLANs all working in Unraid. So real quick on the ordering. This was interesting, Jim. So this all happens on Monday. And I go back and forth, and Hannah's like, I am not dealing with you the same way you've been for the last week. Order it now.
Hannah.
Just do it. Hannah. Just get because I just stress about it and I don't, and then I'm down here trying to fix it. And she's like, just order it. She goes, you're going to do it anyway. Like, what's the difference between now and like a week from now? It's just one more week of you stressing over this. And she was right. So I went on Amazon and I ordered the motherboard, the CPU, and the RAM. And it was like going to be here Wednesday. This is Monday. I'm like, sweet, going to be here Wednesday. That works. Wednesday rolls around. It still says on Amazon going to show up today, but it hasn't shipped. And I'm like, okay, well, sometimes that happens if it's at the Omaha facility. It'll like go from not shipped to ship to arriving today in the same within like an hour.
We have a brand new gigantic Amazon facility here in Omaha now, which is great.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so that's why I wasn't worried about it. But I get the notification. I can't remember what time it was. It was like sometime in the afternoon. I get the notification of like, hey, by the way, your stuff shipped. It's going to be here now Friday. And I had already had texts from a bunch of people like, hey, when's this going to be back up? And, everything like that. So
you're the family.
I'm the family guy. Yeah, I'm the family support guy. So I'm like, you know what? I wonder if Best Buy has this stuff. So I get that notification. Within 5 minutes, I have gone onto the Best Buy website, ordered it all for, by the way, $30 cheaper than I paid on Amazon. Pick up within an hour at the local Best Buy store within 5 minutes of my house.
Wow.
And it made me think, why didn't I just do this Monday? Like I think a lot of us, or maybe it's just me, I default to Amazon. I'm like, Amazon's going to be the fastest, especially for computer hardware stuff. And Best Buy had the exact same setup I was going with. The ROG Strix, the B550, the Ryzen 5 5600, the same exact Vengeance RAM.
They had it in stock?
in stock within an hour.
Wow.
I drove over. I literally placed the order, finished work, drove over less than an hour later, and it was already at the front desk, just like waiting. You just like walk in, you pick it up because you already paid, and you walk out. It's like, I was like, wow, okay. So like, but if you guys are ever in this situation, just check Best Buy, check Walmart, because some of these local stores, you might not have to wait, a day for Amazon. It was just available.
You know where Amazon got it from? Best Buy got it from the Amazon distribution.
Amazon.
Center.
That was actually my same delivery. Amazon just chose to deliver it to them instead.
Yeah, they got it.
No, that's probably exactly right. And so at the same time, I was actually able to go on. So as I'm walking into Best Buy to make sure I can see my stuff, I log on to Amazon. I can cancel the order, and even though it had already shipped, they said, "Yep, we were delayed, so you can just cancel it." So I don't know how it's going to work because they said we'll refund you within 3 to 5 days. I don't know if this stuff's going to end up still showing up on my doorstep on Friday, tomorrow, and I have to return it. We'll see. I'm really hoping I'm one of those really lucky people where they give me the refund and the stuff still shows up. Wouldn't that be nice? Then I get a whole other free gaming rig. That would be Mike luck if we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so that was the story on the ordering. But I got this all fired up last night, got it all put in. Let me just tell you, with Unraid, it is the easiest drop dead simple conversion over you could ever imagine. You don't have to worry about what SATA ports to plug it in, what order the drives go in, because Unraid, if you remember, runs off the USB. So you literally pull out the USB from the old gaming motherboard, from the old motherboard, plug it in the new one. It identifies the drives based off their ID and their serial number. So you just, as long as it can see everything it saw before, you're good to go. Doesn't matter what port you plug it into, doesn't matter at all. So I fired it back up. The one thing I had to remember, this is really the only thing you have to change, is I had static mappings to that IP address based off the MAC address of the old motherboard. So it got a new IP address. It wasn't my standard IP. So when I went to my bookmark, it was different. I'm like, oh yeah, duh, it's not the same MAC address. So I just went to pfSense, found the new one, swapped the static, and then went back to pfSense, rebooted, and it was all good to go. So it was literally that easy. I was back up and running I got all the gear here, quickly put everything together, and within 20 minutes, you're back up just like you were before, no issues. And everything, like, it's just one of those feel good moments where you go from having so many issues, and I had been having issues for months. Like, this hardware had been on its way out. It had been giving me issues, to just like blazing fast, no issues at all. Yes, give me more things to do, please. The Unraid server is just like asking for more and more. So it's been a very nice last 24 hours watching this thing just not throw up any errors.
It is nice. That is nice. That's a good feeling when although there's a little bit of a little letdown at the end. You're like, that's it. I mean, it's done. Like, sometimes, like,
but then you're like, I literally today, a little Google search I did was another project to do on Unraid. Right. Like, what's another project I can do? Because now I have the overhead. Before, where I was like, I need to pare this down. Now I'm like, ooh, now I got the power. And the one thing I didn't mention, guys, it's a 1060 graphics card that I put back in, so it's still the same GPU. So as far as Plex transcoding goes, just threw the 1060 back in. Didn't upgrade that.
Couple comments in the chat room. Tony is saying, so we're talking about broken stuff, right? You're talking about,
yeah.
And he says his wife called. He was working and thought the dishwasher had bit the dust. Hardly anything in stock locally. I was at Lowe's the other night. They were clearancing a ton of their appliances for whatever reason. They had a ton of appliances in the. Well, I need to go because
our appliances are going bad too.
Yeah, you might want to check that out. Said Lucky, the trash in the drain line making a racket and things are okay, so he dodged that bullet. It is. We are in that spot where, well, Alex says he ordered a dishwasher because ours was starting to go last year. Took 6 weeks to get there, and Mike, that's why I was a little surprised. You talk about those parts like those are pretty specialized.
I was shocked.
Yeah.
I was shocked. Yeah. Especially like the RAM, like the exact RAM that I was going with. It was weird. And Joe actually mentioned, the 5600 is something that he bought for his server as well. Has something like a 20K passmark score. True. And what I was coming from, that i7 3770 has a $7,500 pass mark. So, or 7,500. I don't know why it's dollars, not dollars. Pass mark. So jumping from 7.5 to 20 is where I was coming from. That's why this thing is just, it feels like it flies. Even just clicking through the Unraid menus is wild.
Don't fill it up, Wieger. Like, don't, like, you got some overhead. Leave it. Let it breathe.
It's funny you say that, because the tool I have is actually all about still paring back down more.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to talk about, and real quick to answer Joe's question, how many streams can the 1060 handle? So that's a really good question. I use, by the way, if you guys are running Unraid, and if you use a consumer grade, meaning not the P2000 cards from NVIDIA for transcoding, go Google. There is a script that you can have Unraid run, and it unlocks the GPU. NVIDIA GPUs are actually locked by the manufacturer to only be able to do 3 transcodes, no matter what. Like, that is it. The card can do so much more, but only 3. It locks it. There's a very super easy script that you can go find. So my Unraid server, whenever it boots, number 1, it goes and tries to grab the latest NVIDIA drivers. Number 2, it runs that script and it unlocks the GPU. So my 1060 can do, it's never had an issue. Probably easy 10, 15 streams, maybe more. I don't know. I've never had an issue with it. And that actually comes into play with the little tool I was just going to talk about. So, Jim was mentioning don't overload it. So one thing I was looking at is, what got my brain thinking about this was actually I was wondering, hey, could I start paring down? I have so many hard drives. And the problem with me is I started with 4 terabyte and I just kept going with 4 terabyte drives. I never upgraded to 8, 10, 16. So that means that for the amount of storage I need, I have a ton of drives. Not a ton. I think I have 12 drives in that machine, including SSDs, which isn't terrible. But one thing I was thinking is, okay, could I start paring down my storage usage? And so I started to just, Google around, see what products people were doing with their Unraid servers. And there was this application. Now, H.265 is something that's been around for a while, right? Video codec. So traditionally we've all been on H.264 encoding for video files, but H.265 is the latest, and H.265 makes the video files with the same quality a ton smaller size-wise. And so I had always known about this, and actually Gavin Campbell was on the show a few weeks ago, and he had messaged me about some different options for paring down all my media to H.265. And so I was like, oh, so that got my brain churned. So actually, he's the one who got me thinking about, okay, maybe that's a solution for shrinking down storage. What I ended up finding and what I ended up liking was a application called TDAR, TDARR. If you guys give it a Google, essentially you can run TDAR. You can run on anything. It runs on Linux, Windows, Mac, I think even. I'm running it in Docker on Unraid. And what TDAR does is essentially an automated way. You point it at a folder of media. So for me, I pointed it at the root of my Plex library, and it goes in and it looks at all the files and it does a health check on them. And it finds all the ones that are not H.265 and gives you a ton of options. There's a ton of nitty gritty here, but I'm kind of summarizing. And it allows you to automatically find those, convert them, and then replace the old media. Now, you don't have to replace it. You could put all the new media in a new folder if you wanted to keep all your old original files. Very customizable. But the point of the story here is that it is a very easy tool to go in and convert all your old media to H.265. Now, the thing I love about TDAR is it works in a server node operation. So there's actually, on my Unraid server, I'm running this in 2 different Dockers. There's one Docker container for the server, and think of the server as the brains of the operation. So the brains of the operation where it says, okay, here's the root file, here's all the tasks that we need done. We need to go and look at all the files and find out which ones need transcoding, and then I'm going to delegate out tasks. So then you have the nodes. And so on my Unraid server, since I have a 1060 graphics card, I said, okay, set up a node server on there. So you have the server, set up the node. So the node says, okay, hey, I have this graphics card, or you can even do it on CPUs. I would recommend doing it on graphics cards just because CPU is going to take a lot of time and a lot of power. So if you have some GPUs, I would recommend that being your node. So it utilizes my 1060, and the server just then sends tasks. So what it does is says, hey node over here, here's a file, transcode it, send it back to me when you're done. And it does utilize one common cache area where everything kind of like, it's like a loading area, right? So the server pulls the file from wherever, like my Plex media library, puts it in the transcode area and says, okay, node, go grab this file, take it, do your work, and come back and replace it when you're done. And it does that. So the great part about that setup is that you can have as many nodes as you want. So if you have computers on your network that have graphics cards in them, you can put all those to work. This reminds me of the mining days, Jim, right? Where you have any computer that had a GPU in it can start doing work. So what I did was ran a node on this gaming machine that I'm talking to you right now. So I have a 3060 Ti in here. This now, and you can set it up on a schedule. So as long as it's not between 6 p.m. and midnight, where usually I'm podcasting or gaming or doing something on here, it utilizes this GPU to go ahead and do it. So Jim, if you want to pull up, I sent you a few in Discord. The first one is the dashboard. So if either one you pull up, I can explain.
Yeah, give me a second. Keep talking.
Yeah. But so essentially, the nice part about this is that it gives a really cool web GUI. And what I like about the GUI is that you can control everything from this web GUI. So if you want to turn off transcoding for a little bit, if certain things get hung up, if you want to view stats, this thing is really cool about tracking all the stats of, hey, how many have I converted? How many different file formats did you have before versus now? What kind of files have I been transcoding? How many total files do you have that I have in the queue? So for me, I'm like in the thousands. It has thousands of files that's going to go through and transcode into H.265. And so here's kind of a good example. So this is the stats page. And what I love about the stats page, and it's a little bit small, you guys might not be able to see it, but what it shows you is the number of transcodes that have been done and how much space it saved you. So what this is saying on the screen is that, hey, so far we've done 729 transcodes. So it's converted 729 files to H.265. There we go. And it has saved over a terabyte of space. So already with those 729, I've saved 1,182 gigabytes of space, which is really cool. And so obviously with 4,307 files total, you can do the math there. 4,307 minus 729, right? We've got roughly 3,000 some files to go. So I'm looking at probably saving about 5 to 6 terabytes of space, reclaiming that space on my server just from converting to H.265, which I think is really cool. So it's a big space saver. So the other cool thing about TDAR is after the fact, right? So we're talking about an initial run of a lot of files, but it still continues to monitor that folder going forward. So if you still, if you rip another Blu-ray and you throw it on there, it'll do that conversion at that time too. So it continues to monitor those folders for new files that it needs to do, which is great. So this is something I'll keep running. So there are downsides to H.265 though. So it's not, there's always gotchas, there's always caveats. So if you guys are thinking about, if you guys want to convert your personal media library to H.265, there's probably not too much of an issue with that. But the thing is, playback of H.265 media is kind of the gotcha. So you need to make sure that your devices that you're consuming this media on can either, number one, support H.265 and do it well, right? So this is where you're talking about kind of your higher end media players, your Apple TVs, your NVIDIA Shields, right? Like those things aren't going to have any issue with H.265. If you're running your media consumption app of choice on a TV, for example, if you're using like the built-in app on Samsung or whatever, you might have an issue playing back. So in that case, what you're going to need to make sure is that your media server has quality transcoding. So for me, I'm not concerned about it because, I have NVIDIA Shields in my house. Your Windows PC is not going to have an issue with it. Your iPhone's not going to have an issue with it. In the event, though, that I am on a less powered thing, my 1060 is doing my transcoding. So on my Plex server, it uses the 1060, which can transcode probably 5 or 6 4K H.265 videos without any issue. So that's not really a problem for me. So just keep that in mind before you start letting this thing rip and converting everything to H.265. Make sure you either have quality transcoding on the server side, or you know that all of your devices are going to be able to consume this media once you're done.
Joe says he played with 264, 265 the last time he re-ripped his collection. Had good results for BR and UHD rips, but with the older DVDs, the 265 produced larger files. Presumably, he was trying to maintain the noise.
Interesting. Okay.
In the end, I went back to 264 for everything, so my crappier TVs could play them back directly, right, to your point. And then except the UHD, so they're just dumps from the disc.
So, Joe, when you were doing that, when you said your crappier TVs could play them back directly, were you pulling from a server that didn't have transcode capability? Because that's really where you're going to run into the issue. Or maybe you just didn't want to have to deal with transcoding on the server. That's another thing too. But I think if you have either a quality CPU that's going to do transcoding, or if you're going to do it via a graphics card, you're more than okay. Especially if you can unlock your graphics card if you're running it in something like Linux or Unraid.
Mike, you've got kind of a new look to your Unraid. Is this really what it looks like in the box?
This is a live photo. So I just actually took this right before the show. And actually, so this is kind of cool. So I've made a lot of upgrades in the last week. I don't want to get the credit card bill next month. That's not gonna be fun. Luckily, I have it set up to just auto pay, so I don't have to make the choice. It's just like, yeah, that's gonna happen. Anyway, so this is my server rack, and what you don't see in this picture is the actual Unraid server. So below this is actually, so right below that screen is actually a printer. Yes, I still run a LaserJet printer in my server rack, and it is mainly because that is where you would be amazed if you have young kids. By the way, set up a printer. Mine connects to this Raspberry Pi that's right next to that HD Home Run, which is running a cup server, which now allows this 15-year-old LaserJet to be accessible via AirPrint. So my kids love coloring. Well, there are a bunch of really good free coloring page websites. So now whenever my kids want to color, my wife, right there, right next to the Home Run, right to the right of that, you see some cords plugged into it. Yep, right there. That's the Raspberry Pi. That thing is running Cup server, and Cups is essentially a print service. So I have my HP LaserJet plugged into the Raspberry Pi via USB. So now on my iPhone, I can open up the coloring pages, whatever website we're on, and I can just click print, and it's an AirPrint printer. And that printer now, it prints out coloring sheets for my kids. That's all that printer does. And my kids know exactly where to run. They run downstairs, they grab their coloring sheets. So they'll follow us around the house saying, hey, can you print Hulk? Can you print, this? And that's how we print. So, nice. So talk about having a custom server rack that's very custom to your needs. This is very custom to my needs. I did need an HP LaserJet in my rack. And then below that is my massive 4U Rose Will case. And you can't see it. I should have taken a picture of it. It's nothing to look at. It's a Rose Will case server rack 4U that runs all my Unraid. So again, about 10 to 12 drives. I can't remember the current count in the front, and then with everything new in the back. But in this picture right here, when you guys remember, we were talking about switches a few weeks back and kind of how I was having some switch issues. So you'll notice I no longer have a beat down Cisco switch in my rack. That top switch is actually one of those TP-Link switches. I'll get the model number so we can put it in the show notes. But the top switch is an 8-port managed PoE switch from TP-Link. And so my thinking was, when I'm making this upgrade, is, massive managed PoE switches are very expensive, like super expensive, right? If you're going to go Unify, if you're going to go any of those switches, you're talking $300 or up, usually $400, $500 for a switch. And I don't need every port to be managed, and I don't need every port to be PoE. For me, what I needed was a few ports that are managed. And I needed really 3 PoE switches, two ports, two for my Unify access points. So in this top TP-Link switch, first port is just coming straight from the pfSense router, which is actually that Dell PowerEdge R210 which is the third item down there. The second port and third port go to Unify access points that are in my ceiling and my attic. So those do run on PoE. And with the managed portion of this, those ports allow those access points based off their SSID to access my 3 different VLANs I have. So, right, that's why I need a managed switch, because those access points, the SSIDs are tied to different VLANs. And then the next 2 ports are tagged for my security camera VLAN. So those go up. One of those ports runs all the way to the attic, and I have a separate, small, cheap, non-managed, dumb PoE switch up there from TP-Link for all my security cameras around the perimeter of my house that are wired into my attic. So those all go. And so my thinking here, Jim, and my overall structure here was affordability, but still with a managed setup. And so what I did was I have one managed switch branching out to a bunch of dumb switches. Because as long as you can tag your managed switch, that one wire tells all the things downline to be that one VLAN. So in this example, when I have that one Ethernet port running from my managed switch up top, anything plugged into that port can be tagged on my security. So as long as everything up in the attic is on my security camera system network, I don't really care. I don't need any extra smart stuff. And then one of these ports is for the Unraid server, because I needed that to be managed, because the Unraid uses my main VLAN plus that VM accesses my security camera VLAN. And then the second switch down is really just that second switch, the big 24 port down there, is a dumb switch. So it is connected up to the managed switch. All that traffic is tagged as just my main VLAN. So that bottom switch down there is for pretty much everything in the house that just connects to my main network. So that's your ports around the house, that's your NVIDIA Shields, that's my gaming computer, that's everything. And then right below that is that Dell R210. So that is the new pfSense router for me. I'd had it running on an old Dell Optiplex, and this just honestly looks cool. So that's like one of the main reasons I got it. I love rack mounted gear, and it pulls the same power. I was running at, well, it pulls 2 watts more. I was running at 31 watts with the Dell Optiplex, which is, admittingly, guys, I know that's a lot of power for a router. But if I'm going to do that, this runs at 33 watts when I'm running pfSense. So it was just a lot cleaner. I don't need a shelf for it, a lot less space. So I really like that. But the main kind of part of this too is down below. We were talking on Think Computers podcast about how I got a new VESA mount rack mount adapter. So this adapter was, I think, $35 from Amazon. Jim, what's the brand? What do we talked about that brand? It's like the they make everything brand. Oh, I'm gonna forget. 1 second. Techstar, or what is it? StarTech.
Oh yeah.
StarTech, right?
Yeah,
like if you're looking for anything, StarTech probably makes it. Like they make the most random stuff.
They make really handy stuff.
Just like this, right? So this is literally all it is. So StarTech makes a metal, just a piece of metal. That's really all it is. That is measured perfectly for a rack mount setup. So it's kind of like it's probably a 3U. I can't remember if it's 3U or 4U setup. Just a piece of metal that goes across both pieces, and then it has VESA mount holes in the middle, and it's recessed a little bit so that it fits really nice. It's actually meant for either a 19-inch screen that fits inside the rack, or you can flip it around. So what I have is I actually have just a 24-inch regular monitor, and if you flip it, as long as you're okay with it sticking outside of the rack a little bit, you can use it in the opposite formation too. So yeah, StarTech little rack mount VESA. So now I have a monitor on it. And when I'm running there, what you guys are seeing, if you're watching the video, and if you're not watching the video, I'll try to explain it, is a Grafana dashboard. And what this is the Unraid Ultimate Dashboard. And this is actually, I didn't build this. This is a dashboard. I'll grab the link from somewhere. There's really good instructions. This dashboard, someone else built. It is a fantastic dashboard for Unraid. If you just want something that you can quickly pull up, see a lot of stats about your server, and this is actually just the top of the dashboard. I have a little mouse connected to this, and I can scroll down, and there's a bunch of other information you can get. But the Unraid Ultimate Dashboard runs off the Telegraph Docker and the InfluxDB Docker. So if you get InfluxDB to store the data, Telegraph pulls all of the sensor data and plugs it into the DB, and then Grafana pulls it. it sends it right into this beautiful Grafana dashboard. And Grafana, the great part is you can share dashboards. So you import this dashboard that someone else built, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. So I really like it. What I love is that top section actually shows power usage from the UPS that your Unraid box is plugged into. And the way I have my rack set up, everything is powered off my UPS in that rack. So what I get, these stats tell me, is it does the calculations for you. It tells you, hey, your estimated yearly cost right now, and you actually plug in your cost per kilowatt hour into the system. So now I know that on average, pulling about, it's going to cost about $184 a year to run my rack, which actually isn't bad for a whole rack of IT gear. So I love that the top of that dashboard is very power focused, and then showing sensors with temperature. And the one thing you guys will notice, the keen eyes of you, is that I definitely need a new cooler for this new Ryzen 5 5600. I have the stock cooler on there right now, and it's not keeping it very cool. So I have a different cooler on order that I'm going to put on there because it's running a little hot right now.
You had a whole bunch of people at Dashboard. Like last time we were talking about dashboards, I remember some folks contacting me and they're like, talk more about dashboards. I love dashboards.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's me too. I'm so into dashboards that, I'm actually thinking about starting up a syslog server on Unraid and trying to, if you guys have used, I'm going to forget the name. It's Grafana Loki. That's what it is. So Grafana Loki is an offering that essentially it can act as a syslog server. You can pull logs from Docker, from anywhere, from any other system on your network, and use Grafana as kind of the parsing system, right? Where you can display certain things, but you can also go through and search through your logs in a very logical way. So that's the next project. I think I'm going to, since I already have Grafana running, I might as well add in Loki and see if I can start pulling all my logs together. That will be a big undertaking for me because I'm not a log guy. Like you guys know me, like I'm just an average guy who just an enthusiast who, as long as there's a YouTube video out there on it, I can do it. So I have never worked. I don't work in IT, never have. This has all just been a passion of mine. So diving into logs, I feel like that's like my next level of needing to get there so I can start doing my own, like what led me there was when all this stuff was failing in the past few months, Jim, like I saw errors in the log, but I had no idea what they meant. And I didn't know how to bring those all together. I didn't know a good way to search through logs. So now there's Graylog as well, which is another open source logging kind of system. So I might look at Graylog and Grafana Loki. I think those are kind of my next two big projects.
Logs are always a mystery.
Like, they are. I know. That's my problem. Is like I don't know if I would understand it, even if I could parse it.
Windows logging is even more, and then there's different levels you can log at, and it's nuts. Like when you think about, those logs are really designed for the developers, so they can troubleshoot problems, right?
Right.
And they know what they're doing. They work on this stuff all day. We look at it and we're like, oh my God, the who, where,
yeah,
what's going on? So wow. Well, you've had a busy. So you got to feel pretty good now about it all, right?
I came upstairs last night and everything was running, and Hannah's like, I can literally see the difference on your face. And I was like, yeah, it's all good now. Like it is all good. So yeah, it's been a very welcomed change. And so now I need suggestions from everyone of like, okay, what else can I do?
No,
right?
No, yeah. Well, first of all, get your cooler fixed. Let it rest.
Yeah.
Like just enjoy some stability.
Oh, that's no fun.
No, I know it's not.
Yeah.
But give it just give it a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Then you can start adding stuff to it. So anything else that you're working on? I can tell my Drobo story here, but anything else?
No, I mean, actually, it's fun. We got to cover the new PF Sense box and everything. So nothing as of yet. I'll report back on TDAR and let you know, in the end, because this is going to take a couple weeks to finish, right? This is it reminds me, Jim, of like when we used to do the nonces. Remember we used to like, what was that called?
Burst or?
Yeah, but what was it called when you like did the nonces on the drive? It was like you were something. There was a word for it, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
we were plotting.
Right.
Yes. So when we were
my
plotting,
brain's not working tonight. It's good. I've checked out. Sorry.
It's like the plotting of the drives, right? So it
Yeah.
took, you would go back in a while. And so I have 4,000 of these. There's 733 that have been done. And I've been running this for 3 days.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a multi-week project, but I'll be very curious to tell you guys in the end, how many files did I do and how much space did I save? Because I think for a lot of us who have big media servers, and I know there's a few of you in the community, I know it's not everyone, but there's a few of you who have pretty big media servers. This could be a worthwhile endeavor.
Yeah, I don't disagree. The part about converting 264 to 265, now that I like when the Drobo did go down, I lost a whole bunch of plots for Chia. And I ended up replotting them. The drives were still fine, so I put them in drive extenders and did some some docking stations, but I had to replot. So I think for a month I've been replotting and keeping track. Every morning I come down, check the spreadsheet, see what's finished, count it against what's actually. It's a little bit. I mean, I never do that for my job, but it's a little bit of I don't know. There's something weird about it.
You would love that
because track,
I love pulling up the dashboard and seeing where it's at. Oh, and one more thing, more upgrade. I actually don't have in yet, but I don't know if you guys. I mean, I'm sure. See, you guys have all been here and done that. That's the problem when I come to this show and I talk about server stuff. You guys are like, oh, Mike, that's so funny. Back in the Windows Home server days.
It's all good.
I discovered recently the power of a really high quality HBA card for adding more SATA ports to your server. So I have been historically using the cheap $30 to $50, 1X PCIe, 6-port SATA. And I really didn't know how much that was hindering my speed on my drives. I was attributing all my bad speed to my spinners on an Unraid to Unraid, the way it writes, being slow to the array. After a lot of research, figured out that's not the case. It's because I'm sharing a 6 gigabyte per second connection with 6 drives. So instead of 6 gigabytes per second for each individual drive, I'm doing that to 1. So I did grab an LSI 9240 HBA card. And so that's coming soon. I'm going to put that in. So what that runs is it can run 8 drives off 2 of the cords. And I forget what those cords are called. They are the SFF cords, right? SFF to SATA card. So there's 2 ports on this HBA card that run out, and both of those cords split into 4 different SATAs. So this card can support 8, but it's obviously it's the right way to do SATA expansion, not the cheap way. Yeah. But these cards, I was shocked, Jim. Everyone was saying, hey, by the way, go on eBay because all the old ones, all the IT people are getting rid of. And sure enough, there are ones that are even already flashed into IT mode. So that's what you need to do with these. You need to flash them to IT mode so that they're not a RAID card anymore. They're just an HBA. Right. They just make a JBOD, right? So for $65 on eBay, you can go and get a enterprise grade LSI HBA card. To be determined if I got ripped off. Maybe it was a counterfeit. We will find out come Sunday when this thing arrives. But finally going to do my SATA expansion correctly. I'm really excited to do my first parity check in Unraid with full speed to all those drives instead of very, very, very limited speed, which I didn't realize I was hindering my performance on Unraid.
It will, especially the way you use Unraid. So, you're always pushing it. If you weren't doing so much storage, if you didn't have your family watching TV from it, if you weren't you weren't,
or if I was using bigger drives,
right,
because my board, even the new board has 6 SATA ports. That would be, I could get 6 SATA ports worth of the same amount of capacity, probably more, if I was using 8, 10, 12, 16 terabyte drives. I'm still stuck on. I started on 4. I never wanted to update my parity drive beyond 4. Because that's for some reason in your brain in Unraid, if you're going to move to bigger drives, your parity needs to be as big as your biggest drive. Yep. So you need to buy 2. It's well, if I'm going to upgrade, I need to upgrade my parity and this. And I was just never able to make that purchase. But, John, I will. Yes. So what I will work on today. So John Biggs in chat asked if I can get links and models for all the stuff I talked about today. Yes, I will do that and make sure I send them to Jim before Saturday, so you can put them in the show notes of the show.
Yeah. Yep. The world class show notes.
World class. And they're going to be world class this time. I'm going to get you all the links.
Oh, nice. Nice. Just by noon. And then I'll release it, and then we'll watch the premiere together on YouTube.
If I don't do it right after the show, you'll never get them. So I'm going
to do it right You better get it done. Show. You better get it. We'll quit early tonight just for you, John. So, John, by the way,
I got to hear about how you got your server back up too.
Yeah, I should say welcome John Biggs to the show. He told me for months, he was telling me when he retired how he was going to bug me and he'd be in the live show all the time. And I think he retired like 6 months ago. And this is the first night I've seen him in the show. So John, welcome. He's been busy. Don't give it all away in your first couple of weeks of retirement, man. You need to save some of those things to do until you get a little bit later. Ooh, look at this.
Oh, whoa.
Wow. What are we drinking? What is it? Oh, it's a mule. Nice.
She looks like a movie star tonight. She's all dolled up. Was she going out without you, Jim?
She'd been out. She'd been out at a corporate. She'd been into corporate. She was at a work party. She's at a work party. So this saves me from having to go to the fridge for the emergency beer. Thank you.
There you go. Is that a specialized cocktail?
Because I ran out of. It's a mule. It's just a regular mule. Hey, what bourbon did you use? Oh, it's a mule. Yeah, I was thinking it was old fashioned. Sorry.
Tito's probably right.
Yeah, Tito's probably.
Yeah,
I think that's what we carry. So we so the other day I was kind of, I'm not gonna say I ran out of projects, but I needed something to do. And the Drobo has been staring me in the face. And I thought, we'd had that conversation with either we just had it. No, we were getting ready to have it with Jay. And I was thinking, maybe I can ask Jay about a small form factor board to retrofit into the Drobo.
Oh, yeah.
So I could take advantage of the Drobo drive base. That would be pretty cool. So I thought, let me pull this thing apart. I've never pulled the Drobo apart. It's surprisingly easy. It's like 4 screws. The cover slides off of it. There's 3 on one side, I think 3 or 4 on one side and 3 or 4 on the other. You pull those out, the whole thing comes apart.
And is everything in there user upgradable?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
The board's not. No, the board is not for sure. It's definitely proprietary. But
is the CPU soldered to the board and the RAM?
Oh yeah, you're not getting anything. You're not getting anything off of that thing.
Got it.
It's all one unit, right? It's like a Mac. It's like a Mac Mini. It's all you're not separating any of that stuff. But so took it all apart, kind of cleaned it up, blew some parts out. It was just kind of seeing how is this thing put together. And then I go, I wonder if I plug this thing in, just what it'll do. So I plugged it in, lights come on, the blinkies come on, and I'm doing some stuff. And I'm like,
and it didn't do that before?
Yeah, they did. But
okay.
I was just monkeying around with it. Just trying to get a feel for it. I said, I wonder what happened if I plugged a drive into this thing. So I plugged the drive in. Light comes on, turns green. It's like, oh, that's new. That they've always been red. When they fail, they go red. So I start putting I put the thing back together enough that it, in theory it could work. And I put a couple drives on it. They both go green. I plug the network connection in. It shows up on the network. And I'm like, oh, it shows up with drives. It's working. It's like, what the? Now, Mike, I had tested this thing for hours trying to get it back, before when I kind of considered it dead, swap drives around, whatever. So I called John, my son. I said, hey, do you have some drives I could borrow to test this thing with? He's like, oh, I've got SSDs and IC docks. Is that going to work? I'm like, perfect. So he gives me 3 of those. We plug them in. I put the thing back together.
It works
like it was never a problem. Had to format it a couple times and do some. I'm never going to trust it. Let's be really clear about this for a second. I don't care how well it's working right now. I can never trust this thing again because I took it apart.
Well, so the only thing you did though was blow it out from dust, right? Physically, there was no.
I might have tightened up some connections. I mean, who knows, right?
Yeah.
When you take those.
Well, and it's amazing what dust conducts electricity, right? So when you've got dust in a system, it can cause shorts and things like that. So
yeah, well, it's super fun. Like it was
yeah.
a super fun. Like I had nothing to lose. I had already written the thing off, and so it's sitting there. It's got 4.
You've got chia in it, don't you?
No, not yet, but I'm gonna.
Okay, but I'm going to.
I'm gonna use it for some of that.
Yeah.
It's got 4 SSDs in it that it's pretty fast, and it's running again. So again, I don't know. I've thought about just selling it, putting it on eBay for $50 and saying, used, definitely used type deal.
Right.
Just get rid of it. Although it's just handy to have. It's kind of handy to have with a couple discs. The problem is, Mike, it's the same problem you have. Is okay. Then I have it, and then I'm like, I wonder how much stuff I could put on it. Right? You can't leave it be.
No,
you just can't.
Never.
You can't just let it
I'm
be.
already wondering, like, okay, maybe that board was just bad with all the stuff I had on it. The old board I pulled out that I know is dead.
Did you throw it? Has it gone?
No.
Have you recycled it? Oh God. Oh God.
So it's gonna end up in another system, and then that one's gonna fail.
Well, it's gonna work. It's gonna work for you the first time.
Maybe. Yeah, you're right. The first time
it's gonna, and you're gonna be like, I brought it back from the dead, and then and it's gonna work for a while, and then you are going to put something mission critical on it because you're gonna get lured into trusting it.
Jim, we've obviously been podcasting too long together because you know exactly what I'm going to do. Like to the T, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Oh,
it's a good thing I don't have a spare. I've used up all my cases. I don't have anything to put that in is the problem. And I actually don't even have another power supply. I've used up all those and I've gifted those to other people. So I have no other power supply. So I might actually trash this one.
I got an extra one if you want it. John says I should listen. If you ever want to hold on. If you ever want to guarantee you're never going to lose a power supply again, just buy a really expensive extra one that you use, you put on the shelf and you're like, okay, I'm saving this for an emergency, right? Yep. Someday one of my power supplies is going to blow and I'm going to need an extra one. And now I have one. I've had this thing for almost 3 years. Like it's just sitting on it. It just sits there. It's my backup. It's my backup power supply, right?
How many watts is it?
750.
Oh yeah, that's nice. I'll buy that off you. I actually need one for my gaming PC.
Because then as soon as I sell it to you, something will blow up.
I'll give you my 500. Can we trade?
There it is, right there. If you're watching,
I'll give you my 500, my pocket lint, and a bus
token. Seven EVGA.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's what I have in my Unraid server. That's actually the exact one I have in my Unraid server.
Gold power supply. Yeah, it's a
great one. It's modular, right?
It is. It's very modular.
I love that power supply.
Yeah, I got a pretty good deal on it. I'll sell it for 25% more to you for that.
Oh, see, now you're learning. Proud.
So proud moment. Proud papa moment.
Yeah. Proud scalper moment.
But as soon as I give that to you, like this guarantees. Nothing's ever going to go wrong. Like I'm never going to lose a power supply. So that's how you.
That's true.
Just have extra. Okay. So John Big says I shut down his Windows Home Server 2011 box tonight, and wondering now what he can do with the hardware. Yeah. Don't, John. Don't.
Unraid.
I do this. I've got this shuttle. I've got a Atom. Remember the old Atom processors?
Yeah.
So I've got one of those boards. I think it's got 16 gigs of RAM in it, and it is just literally the biggest POS. Like it just does. But I've got some Chia running, some Chia clients, some forks, and that's that poor CPU. I just keep waiting for it to blow.
But it still works. That's like that was me on my Unraid box. Like it still works. So like why?
It doesn't work well.
John, what's the? I'm curious, John. What's the hardware? Right? Like, is it actually reusable hardware that you could put into like a working Unraid box? Unraid will run on anything.
Look at this. He's still running Windows Media Center. He's worse than me on an 09 build powered by a Seaton PCM CIA tuner card. Ooh,
okay, so John, I might be kicked out of the podcast community for saying this. Okay. What's the difference between Windows Home Server and Windows Media Center?
Well, Home Server is an OS.
Okay.
Media Center is an add-on to Windows.
So you could run a Windows, quote unquote, Windows 10, Windows 98, Windows 95, whatever, with Windows Media Center.
Windows 8 was Windows 8 was the last version that supported Windows Media Center, and then they had, I think they had an upgrade to Windows 10 that you had to buy or something.
So is it kind of like running Plex?
Yeah, it's an application.
Windows.
It's an application.
Okay.
Windows Media Center is an application.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. So
I never played with either of those, surprisringly.
Joe says get the torches. Yeah, this yeah, Mike's
Mike's new here. So yeah, I've never actually run a Windows Home server.
Yeah, this goes way back. It's all we talked about for a lot of years. Wow. Let me take a sip of this mule. That's I didn't even ask for this thing. So this morning, I had a 7:00 call with South Africa, and so I needed to be kind of down here early. Started brewing the coffee, but it didn't get done until after I was on the call. And Sarah was like, "You want me to bring it down?" And I'm like, "Nah, don't worry about it. I'll be fine." Well, I didn't. The call was 2 hours, and I ran out of coffee like 30 minutes in. So I pinged her, "Would you bring it down to me?" So in a moment when I was talking, and I'm on Zoom, I'm on the big screen, I'm talking. This hand that comes through the I have curtains here. Yeah. This hand comes through the curtain with a pot of coffee, just sets it down on my desk, and everybody thought that was just the greatest thing ever. They're like
Jim's got an assistant that brings him coffee.
You get coffee delivered in an old school
if you just put it in the Uber Eats notes when they deliver your Starbucks, they'll actually come into your house, give them the code, they'll hand it to you.
They have a code in my garage door, so they can do that. So Drobo's back working again. We'll see how it goes. We'll just kind of see how it goes. So, well, Mike, thanks for sharing all that with us, getting caught up on your Unraid box and all those pieces.
Happy to share. I mean, it was so funny how fast and furious that happened. That was all within.
You did it pretty fast, but that doesn't surprise me. That just doesn't surprise me, at all. Are you reeling from the crypto at all?
I am still just kind of set right now, and I'm not freaking out. I'm trying not to. Yeah, I haven't made any moves. Right.
Good.
And so I'm letting it just happen. I made this decision. I actually took it off my dashboard on my phone, right? Because iPhone, whatever they're called, widgets. I took the widget off, and I just set alerts to alert me when it gets up to a certain level. Because you know what? I'm like, I'll probably ride this down as far as I can go, because I've seen this happen before, Jim. Like, you and I have both seen this dive so hard. And even when you think it's bad, it gets worse, and then it gets worse, and then it gets worse. And now look where we're at compared to those prices when we thought we were at the rock bottom. Right. So I know how this story goes. And if I'm wrong, but it's not for me. The money I have in there is not life-changing money. It's
could be life-changing if it goes the other direction.
Exactly. That's what it is for me. It's money that could be life-changing, but you know what? If in the end it actually did go to zero, still gonna be able to eat. My kids are gonna be fine.
Yeah, so you'll be fine. I just
don't watch it anymore.
You didn't bet the farm on it. You didn't.
No. So is it up, down? I legit have not looked at crypto prices in about a week.
Yeah. I'm hearing from a lot that are in that. They're just kind of like, listen, if you feel like you missed it, okay, now is literally
okay. So it went down. That's my answer.
Yeah.
So
now
or down.
Let me look again.
Now you got
Now let's just okay. Let me hold it. We get over here. I'm in coin. Yes, now is definitely the time. So especially on Bitcoin. So don't forget we got that offer going on. $10 after your first $100 purchase or trade. You get 10, we get 10, and head over to theaverageguy.tv/Coinbase if you want to jump in and kind of join us on this. Again, don't do money you can't afford to lose. And I'm not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice, all that other stuff. But if you want to join us in that, it's kind of fun. Everything's on sale. So
it is down.
I took some, like Mike, I always set aside some in cash for these moments. And then these moments happen, and I'm like, maybe it can go a little bit lower. Low. Yeah. No, it's a good time. It's a good time to buy. So hopefully, John, I was talking with John, and he put some stop loss stuff in, and so you got to protect yourself. Be smart about it. Oh, there's a bunch of new coins where you can make $5 to $10 just watching videos. So if you want to get in, you don't want to trade your money. and get in there, watch those videos, get Coinbase's money, and mess around that way. It's not a bad way to do it. theaverageguy.tv/Coinbase. Big thanks to Christian, of course, for hosting Home Gadget Geeks, maplegrovepartners.com. If you need secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust, I gotta call him. I haven't talked to him in a long time. Reach out to maplegrovepartners.com and get that done. Big thanks to our Patreon supporters for what they do. If you want to join us on Patreon, theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. If you want to join us in our Discord group, theaverageguy.tv/Discord. It's not too difficult to find these things, right? Just put theaverageguy.tv/whatever you're thinking it should be. You'll probably get there. And then don't forget, leave us a message. I'd love to hear from you during the holiday season, at least here in the United States. HomeGadgetGeeks.com. Leave a message and we'll get you done. You can always send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. Find me on Twitter @Collison. He is @Wieger Tech. Man, that's a lot of stuff. We didn't have a lot of things going on tonight, so I thought I'd get all of those out for you. Join us or join me, even if you're listening live tonight, join me Saturday, noon Central, premiere of this show on YouTube. And we can just chat in the chat room for a little bit. I'll be doing some other things for Home Gadget Geeks, but it'd be great to see you. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv live. I got a story for the post show, so if you're listening live, hang tight. I got a new toy for the shed. You know, I've been on a tool binge. We'll talk about that in the post show. With that, we'll say goodbye.